Hello and welcome back. Thank you to everyone that watched our video on coaching the basics in hurling and camogie last week with National Hurling Director Martin Fogarty, who's with us again. And thank you to everyone that submitted questions, and we're going to run through a couple of those this evening. Firstly, Martin, you might want to pull me up on the title I had on this about coaching the basics. As you quite rightly pointed out in your piece, they're the essentials, they're not the basics.
Well, Darragh, thanks for having me in for a start. And yeah, I mean, we all discussed them over the years, and we all called them the basics. But you know, the more I look at them, and the more I get to think about them, and the word basic, it doesn't do those skills justice. Not that I'm into English or into dictionaries, but I mean, when you mention something basic, you're talking about something very, very simple. And these skills, they're not simple. And that's why I use the word essential. And interesting enough to hear a few top goalies there last week in one of our webinars using the same word, essential. So, you know, it's, I suppose I was up in, I won't say the county, but I was up north in a pretty decent hurling county a couple of years ago. And I mentioned doing a little bit of raising the ball and a little bit of pucking the ball on the ground. And the lads were a senior team, a pretty good senior team, and they're still looking at me because they kind of thought these things were beneath them. And after 5 minutes, you know, raising the ball, I just pointed out, lads, look how many of you have missed the jab lift, how many of you missed the roll lift. And they says, you know, you transfer that to a match, that's going to cost you the game. And they were still half looking at me. But then when I told them, lads, look, these are things that Kilkenny seniors do almost every night. And then they started thinking differently. So, you know, it's how you look at some of these skills. If you look on something as being just for under 10s or under 12s, the older players, they think they're a little bit beneath them. But then when you point out to them that they're deficient in those areas, for example, you could have a 30-year-old player and he can strike maybe on his strong side 70 meters and he can strike on his weak side 40. Well, I mean, that's a major problem. And until those things are pointed out to them, they're not going to improve. So you bring that right back down then to looking after youngsters, and I'm positively certain that if we give the youngsters those essential, basic, if you want to call them, skills, and have them proficient in them, they're going to be very, very good players. And I just pick out striking as an example. Give me a striker any day, a player that can strike right and left on the ground, out of his or her hand, a stationary ball, a moving ball, you know, give me that player any day, and I will pick that player.
Developing players to be good hurlers is a huge part of what we're trying to do, Martin, what every coach is trying to do. But I guess for ourselves, say in Leitrim now, you know, attracting youngsters to the game and keeping them playing hurling as they get a little bit older is hugely important as well. It is probably more important in these parts. And if a child is enjoying it, they're going to stay with it, and if they're going to bring their friends along. But if they're not getting those skills, if they're not practicing them and they're not enjoying using those skills, it's going to hinder that process, isn't it?
Without a shadow of a doubt, Darragh. You see, with any sport, you know, if you can't play it, you don't enjoy it. If you're poor at it, it frustrates you. And, you know, I make the analogy there to, we'll say, snooker. And I got the lads here, the young lads, a snooker table a good few years ago. And they were quite handy at it, but I was absolutely useless at it. And I mean, a ball straight in front of the pocket, I couldn't pot it. And I don't enjoy the game. And often the lads will say, you want to play a game? And I don't enjoy it. And I remember years and years ago getting cornered into a badminton tournament when I never played the game. And to be honest, I looked at the game as being a wishy-washy kind of a game. But I got a rude awakening when a guy brought me up to give me the basics of the game. And he absolutely wiped the floor with me. And for a while, and I'm saying for about, I suppose until I had played it about 10 or 12 times, I didn't enjoy it because I couldn't serve properly. I couldn't tip a shuttle over the net. But when I got a bit of proficiency, and then I started to enjoy the game. And, you know, that's why I look at hurling. And I'm constantly trying to tell people, start at the beginning. Start on the ground and become proficient on the ground, and you'll enjoy the game very, very quickly. But if players for example, they're consistently rooting and poking and prodding and trying to raise the ball. Raise a ball that if it was handed to them, they probably can't strike it. But there's no enjoyment in that. That's frustrating. So, you got to know what you can do. And if you can master the ground, block it, strike it, move it on, you'll enjoy the game. Look at, dare I say it, almost like hockey, right? A few skills, block it, move it on, you will enjoy the game. Okay, if you even take, for example, soccer, if you never headed a ball, you block it, you kick it. You block it, you kick it, you move it. You will enjoy the game. Now, hurling, there's so many skills in it. And if you're trying to perform skills that you just can't do, you're going to become frustrated. So to me, we got to give the players from the very beginning, and I'm talking about junior infants, 4 or 5 year olds, right? Give them a few little skills where they can swing a hurl for a start, where they can hit a ball, a big ball, I'm saying a little football or a first touch ball, where they can play that along the ground, 1 opposite 1 to begin with, and then maybe 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, little small games without ever dreaming of raising the ball. They're enjoying that game, Darragh, I guarantee you. Now, running alongside that, we're doing a little bit of skill development because they want to be able to raise, they want to be able to catch, and we bring those little skills along little by little. But the game, we kind of confine the game to what they're able to do, and little by little then, and it won't take long as they get a little bit more proficient, we include a few extra skills in the game. I mean, I was reared on ground hurling, I was reared on lift and strike, I was reared on, if the ball doesn't come up the first time, strike it off on the ground. And when I say I'm talking about probably every hurler in Kilkenny, and it worked out all right. But even as we got older, things like ground hurling were still driven into us, because we were, if I go to a ball and I'm a fraction slower raising it, and a stronger player, a better player comes in and dispossesses me, or even if I get possession, to hook me or block me, I can picture the coaches coming in and saying, look, it doesn't come up quick, let it off. And little by little, you build a skill. So that would be my take on it at that level.
Would you agree, Martin, it's hugely important to keep it fun, though, rather than, having them doing ground striking or doing these essential skills at every session? Because inevitably, if you have an under 10 that's able to pick the ball up and hit it, he's never going to want to hit it on the ground again, is he? Because he wants to show everyone that he's able to hit it out of his hands. So you have to give him some sort of incentive to keep practicing those skills.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it depends on the level they're at. I mean, when you're at the level where they are able to raise it and strike it, okay, of course, it's all about fun and enjoying the game. But, if you watch a player, will say they can raise and strike. But if you find in a game, they're actually getting bottled up, they're getting closed down, they're not having fun at that stage, and you've got to point out to that player, at that particular time, on that particular ball, they would have been better off to let it off on the ground. Now, I'm not trying to sell ground hurling, not by a long shot. What I'm trying to sell is that as you add, it's like the golfer with a bag of clubs. He looks at the ball, or she looks at the ball, and they say, right, what club will I use here? Will I use a driver? Will I use a chip and wedge? Will I use a putter? So it's the same in hurling. If you have the bag of skills, and then you have a split second, have I time to raise it? And if I do raise it, have a time to use it, get rid of it. And if you have, grand, that's what I'd be doing. But in that split second, if you say, okay, I can raise it all right, but I'm going to be closed down, so I'm going to lose it. So your decision would have been better by tipping it on or striking it on. So that's where I'm coming from. And again, you will have different levels, and how I would handle different levels over the years. I suppose it goes right up to inter-county senior. You put your stronger players together, and you put your weaker players together, and they play away different ends of the field. I mean, traditionally, in my club, and I think in most clubs around Kilkenny, even at adult level, you're at one end of the field, the strong lads were there, and let's call them what you like, the developers were at the other end. So Sunday, some night in training, you were called up to the strong end. That was a major bonus. But, you didn't want to be up there if you weren't able for it. So, the developing players were doing whatever, 5-on-5, 6-on-6, and they were playing obviously at a slightly lesser level, but they were learning and bit by bit picking it up. And the stronger players were on the stronger players at the other end of the field. And even sometimes, Darragh, that could be even age grades. Clubs, you have a mixture of age grades. and let's say you're lucky enough to have 30 players in the field, but there's a gap in age grades. So you put the older ones at one end, and I did that in school for years, where I was in a small school, started out with only 25 children from junior infants to 6th class. So, I mean, how do you play a game? So little by little, we put the older children, mixed them, boys and girls mixed, didn't matter. The girls were as good as the boys, that didn't matter, at one end of the field, and I put the younger ones at the other end, and I stood in between. And the ones at the lower end, I might have told them it's all on the ground because they weren't able to rise. And the ones at the other end, the stronger players, they play normal hurling. And if the ball wasn't going up and down enough, I'd intervene, and I'd either puck it down myself, or I'd tell one of the stronger players, so I'd puck it down there for a while. It's all about improvisation. But to enjoy the game, you enjoy the game when you have the few skills. And, again, you talk about swimming is great fun, but you don't jump into a 6-foot pond like if you can't swim. You paddle around for a while and you enjoy it in a foot and you roll over. And it's the same in hurling. And to me, the coach should, involve the children in a game that they can play. And if that means some of your players are not able to pick it, so maybe you put 5 versus 5 down on one end and they're playing all ground hurling, okay? 5 versus 5 in the middle then, and they're playing full-sided hurling. Depends. Does that answer that for you, Darragh?
It does, and it actually leads me on to one of the questions that came in. It's looking at it from a different type of angle, but it's probably the same issue we're talking about here. One of our viewers asked about dealing with small numbers. Now, small numbers in a small club in Leitrim might mean 5 or 6, the same as it could in any club right across the country, of course. But if you're dealing with, particularly small numbers, and there is, a young fella that has been hurling for a couple of years or has cousins that he hurls with and is that a little bit more advanced, in a situation like that, what sort of advice can you give, Martin?
Okay, well, the first thing I'd say, Darragh, is that that's not specific to Leitrim. Now, this might surprise you, but I'm going to say back in 2003 or 2004, I was involved with Kilkenny under-21s. And I can positively remember leading up to an All-Ireland semi-final and leading up to a final, having maybe 12 players in the field in Nolan Park for a variety of reasons. Some could be in college. At the time, the seniors were involved as well, and the seniors might have been down a good few players, and we might have sent a few in to make up the numbers there. So now that was inter-county, but I mean, in every club in Kilkenny almost, you are going to have that situation very, very regularly. And my approach has always been, coach has to be positive. When you arrive down to the field, we all love to see, we just use the number 30 players in the field. But that's a myth, that rarely happens. And when I go down some evening and I see 5 or 6, I say, deadly, right? This is deadly. Right, we'll get some real good stuff done tonight, lads, and you have a bit of crack. There'll be no hiding. And you actually do. You can actually get a lot of one-on-one stuff done. And it's about, first of all, getting a little mixture of skill development and game time. So let's say you have 6 players in the field for a start. Right, first thing is you're going to get your skill development done. And to me, that comes back to those 7 essentials, right? In any order you want them. Rising, catching. Now, straight away, huge amount to be done on rising, huge amount of different types of catching. From a metre, from 2 metres, a high one, a low one, from 50 metres, depends, okay? So we say rising and catching. Hooking and blocking might not be relevant for your little beginners. Depending on the group you have, you mightn't be doing that. And then you have the 2 absolute top of the bracket, striking and hand passing. So I mean striking, the amount of striking you can do with your 6 players. All types of striking. Ground, lift and strike, catch and strike, short ones, long ones, striking to a player that's standing, striking to a player that's on the move, striking when you're standing, striking when you're on the move, right and left. You could spend a month doing it. So this is a huge opportunity to get that in. Now, most important part then of all training, in my opinion, is the game. And I always believe there should be a game every night in training. And I have a kind of a rule of thumb, half the session is given to a game. So you got 6 players. So what do you do? Again, it really doesn't matter what age you are. You can start off and say, right, goalie challenge. So you're across the field, depending on the age group. If you're little toddlers, it's on the ground and we're trying to score goals in each other. Now, if that's inter-county seniors, again, you saw it last week on the goalies webinar, You know, the top goalies in Ireland on about it. Tommy Welch, 9 All-Irelands, 9 All-Stars, and what was he doing in the Garden? Goal to goal. Now, the problem is, so many people, they see that, they hear it, but they don't take it on board. You know, I mean, if we don't listen to Tommy Welch, and I'm saying Tommy because I know Tommy, but there's Tommies everywhere. If we don't listen to them and what made them great, well, then we shouldn't be coaching. So you take your 6 players and you can start off 1 versus 1, and we can rotate them, and we can even build it into a little competition. Who's going to win? And there can be whatever. There can be a lollipop for the winner, and you can have different distances. Then you can have on the ground, even for seniors, ground competition, lift and strike out of your hand. Okay. Next thing we can do then is we can set up a little goals, and we'll play what we used to call 3 goals and in. So yourself and myself are out the field, and the third lad is in the goals, and he pucks out the ball, and we play away. And whichever of us gets 3 goals first, we step in the goals. While us 3 are doing it, the other 3 are doing the same. Now you want to have plenty of breaks, because that's tough hurling. Now again, if that's your 5-year-olds, that's all on the ground, and they're rooting away and they're poking away. If they're 6 or 7-year-olds and they're able to rise a bit, they're doing a little bit of a mixture. Now, within those games, if they're seniors, and you want to work on some aspect of the game, for example, high catching, but then the goalie, every time the goalie has the ball, he or she pucks it out high between the other 2 players, and they're competing for the high ball. So that's bringing an element into it. Let's say you want to work something about taking on a man or taking on a woman. Okay, you and I are out the field, the ball is pucked out, and I'm given possession, and I come running at you. That's, you know, so you improvise there. So that's our 3 goals and in. And then we'll say our last little game can be, we set up 2 goals normally, and we have 3 versus 3. So there's 1 in the goals, and there's 2 versus 2 out the field. And I tell you, it's an exceptional little game. Now, I have done that hundreds of times, Darragh, with all age levels. So, you know, numbers, they don't matter. They don't matter. You rarely, if ever, even at inter-county level, get this perfection. And while I'm on it, I would always say, you shouldn't ever, as a coach, you know, you shouldn't be looking for this. Everybody has to be in the field every night. They don't, because they can't. You know, and probably it's not I could say especially at adult level, because people are caught working, they're caught in college, they're caught away. But the same prevails for youngsters. You know, the youngster is dependent on the mammy or daddy bringing them down. Now, if mammy or daddy is working, the youngster can't make it. So you don't put extra pressure on them. You know, they might have to go somewhere else. And, you know, if the training is enjoyable and fun, they will keep coming and challenging. If you put too much pressure on them, the wrong kind of pressure, well, they don't want it. I mean, I should not feel bad as a youngster because I can't make training. I shouldn't be putting pressure on my parents who maybe have to go somewhere else or have to work to bring me down. So all of those little things, Darragh, I just think are important.
Yeah, usually so. One thing that I'm kind of stressing a lot to clubs in my area is, even if you only have 6 kids or 7 kids at a session, you also there have the potential of 6 parents, 6 mammies or 6 daddies maybe getting involved and giving you a hand. There is, I guess, a little bit of a hesitancy for people that haven't played hurling themselves, and that'd be quite a number of GA people in developing hurling counties that would have no experience of playing hurling or camogie. There's no reason, however, that they shouldn't be involved, though, Martin, or they should at least be asked to get involved.
Wow, Darragh, that's a minefield. You know, I could talk for so long on it. All right, I'll start off by saying, okay, I'm from Kilkenny. It's a strong hurling county, and when I was growing up myself, we had a pretty good team. I don't want to bore you now with this, but we had been beaten in a Rhine under 14 final, which is pretty decent. And 2 years later, then, you know, we were expected to maybe go to the 16 final. And at the start of the year, we didn't have anyone to look after us. And that's not unusual in Kilkenny. You know, even every year, we wanted people to take charge of teams every year in my club or any clubs around. You know, you have to encourage people to do it. So it's no different than any county. But I remember clearly that year at 16, we were down in the field ourselves. And that's as it should be as well. we were down as players, we were in the field, and we were hurling away ourselves. And we had just got a new priest in the parish maybe a couple of weeks before that, and he arrived down, and we just knew him by sight. And he just introduced himself and hello and whatever. And he says to us, lads, he says, look, I'm looking after you for the year. I'm sure that was grand. I didn't bat it at all with us. But he says, look, I know nothing about the game, he said. Right. And he never picked up a hurl in his life. No disrespect, because there are some great hurlers up there, but he was from Wicklow, and he had spent quite a few years in England as a priest. So he literally had never picked up a hurl in his life. Now, the only way I could describe it, Darragh, is he infected not just our team, but he infected the whole parish with enthusiasm. Right? He absolutely got the place buzzing. We went to that final that year under 16. We did get beaten, but that's beside the point. But he got others around him. He got old guys around that were maybe retired and never coached before, and got down and got an unbelievable juvenile spirit going. And I can remember all the faces. They just got them all hurling little training sessions. When I say training session then was, Darragh, it was mini games. People talk about small-sided games now as if they're revolutionary. I mean, these guys never coached in their lives per se. They got little games going. And a blind man could see, who was stronger and who was weaker, and they separated us, and the stronger went in their little groups and the weaker went in their little groups. And they got little school leagues, they encouraged the teachers, again, many of who had no hurling experience, just to get little leagues going. Now, our club lifted like a ship rising in a flood. And that same little priest moved on in later years to 2-3 other parishes in Kilkenny, Darragh, and the very same thing happened. Now, no hurling background, not a clue, could not tell you how to hold the hurl, but infected us with enthusiasm. So that's the first part of it. In fact, I would say sometimes the best coaches never play it, especially with juveniles, because they understand how hard it is. If you're an ex-inter-county player, you haven't a clue about it being difficult to throw a ball up and hit it. And it's extremely difficult for those that can't do it. Where a non-hurler tries it and they can't do it, then they have, I don't know what the word is, empathy with the players. Where your top player can't understand why it's not automatic. So that's the first thing I'll say. Now, the next thing I'll say is, especially with the youngsters, to have the parents involved. Now, even in school, and again, I'm harping back because I spent 38 years primary teaching, to get the teachers out into the middle of the match. And I'm talking teachers that never played, male and female, never picked a hurl up in their lives, to have them in there in the middle of the little junior infants and the senior infants and the first and the second, man, it just drives them ape. It just, they love it. And the teacher, what did they have to do? Root a ball or two, good man, good girl, well done. And the parents can do the very, very same. And I always recommend, great exercise for any club, is to have a parents hurling even or two. Now, again, starting simply. You don't want them coming down and cutting heads off each other. I always, again, starting them out, keep the hurls low, keep the hurls almost on the grass, keep the hurls below the knee, because you don't want anyone getting injured, even if they have helmets on. And when you get the parents involved in that, and the parents involved in a bit of striking, right and left, on the ground, moving on and rising, hand passing, they start to enjoy it. And really, you could say, all right, we're showing that, getting the parents, showing them how to play with their own children in the backyard or down on the beach. But I mean, if they can be brought down to the pitch, so you have 6 youngsters in the pitch, and you have 6 parents, wow, that's 12. And there's your match. And that match can be mixed up, where you can have adults on children. And sure, the children love it, yourself. And then you can, if you want to put a bit of a sting into it, you can have the adults on the adults and the children on the children, and then you're going to lift all boats. So, that's a kind of a brief on that, Darragh. Does that make any glimmer of sense to you?
It does. No, it's hugely, when you put it in them terms, excuse me, Martin, when you put it in them terms, it seems crazy that any parent will sit in the car when there's fun to be had out in the pitch, isn't it?
Well, Darragh, what I'm saying to you there now is, and clubs don't realise it, you got to ask them. and you got to ask them a few times, because look, we had that situation in my own club years ago where a few of us were kind of complaining among ourselves we weren't getting any help. And I remember saying to the lads, sure, when do we ask for help last? And we hadn't asked for it, because sometimes we think we're the only people who can do it. And I remember sitting down, and I won't go into it in too much depth now, but we sat down and we wrote out a list of people. I say people because they were male, female, ex-hurlers, people that never hurled. And we asked them, would they get involved, and would they do, at the time we asked them, would they do 10 little sessions across the summer with maybe 10 players, and we'd give them a little bit of training on what to do. And we got about 15 people after a small little bit of persuasion, because people need, there's no point in writing it in the parish newsletter. You know, you got to maybe send a note to the people. You follow it up with a phone call, and you follow it up by calling to the door, because people are shy and don't want to push forward, and they can be a little bit hesitant. But if you can get that parent out of the car, and let's say the ball's on the pole, and you can get them to hold those while the little youngsters are striking them. If you can get them to stand at a couple of tires, and that can be a station, and just, you know, rotate the children to the next station and the next station, then they're getting a little bit of confidence themselves, the parents, and little by little they'll pick up on a few bits. And Darragh, there's so many courses on, if people want to bring themselves on with more knowledge. There's just so many courses, there's so many resources out there. But if they never did any course, if they just went down, let it be the nursery, and I'm saying the nursery, it could be the seniors as well, because even at senior level, you know, if I have somebody to help me bring out the water, bring out the bibs, watch a drill maybe that I've set up, and just keep the players going, you know, and I can tell them, you know, this could be a person never saw hurling in their life before, and I'm saying to them, right, okay, the name of this exercise is, as soon as they grab the ball, they take a step to the side and they drive it back across the field immediately. Now, you don't need any stripes to understand that. So you've never seen the game of hurling, and you're coming down and you're helping me. I suppose the buzzword be now, I'm mentoring you, or you're shadowing me. And I say, right, this exercise now for the next 5 minutes, and we have 30 players, 15 across from 15. And what I want, you know, in my head is, in a match, they grab a ball. Instead of throwing it up and striking it and being blocked, they grab it, they take a step to the side, and then they strike it. So that's the purpose of the 5 minutes. So I say to you and other lads that maybe never heard, right, you watch those two guys. As soon as they grab it, just shout the word step to the side. Right? And that's you coaching at the top level. So, you know, and you bring that right down then to the little nursery. And to me, one of the best forms of nursery hurling and training is little station play, because you can have little exercises, little drills, little games, and we rotate the players. And all you want is, God, if you had a parent, an adult, looking after 2 or 3 stations, you're doing well. But imagine if you had one for every station. And I've seen this. My mind can see in the winter up in Belfast on a little AstroTurf. Wonderful. Sorry I didn't video it. A lovely little stations program where they had a nice little bit of help, and everything was in 10 minutes before the training. The guys, the men and the women that were involved, they had their little stations set up, their tires, their balls on the rope, their hurls, the balls on the end of the stick, whatever. And youngsters came in, they had the place for an hour. The bibs were on immediately, and the youngsters knew where to go. 5 minutes, off they went, whistle blew, they were brought to the next station. 5 minutes, on to the next. And then when the 30 minutes was up, bang, they had 3 or 4 little pitches set up across the pitch immediately into their teams, and away they went. And there was no skill level needed from the coaches. Organisation, that was it. So look, I'm rattling on a little bit there now, Darragh, but I feel passionate about that.
Yeah, I can see it. And it's great stuff, Martin. Really applicable to what we wanted to talk to you about today. Thanks very much for taking time to join the Leitrim Wednesday workshop sessions and for taking our questions today.
Delighted, Darragh, and just while you're there, and I have a problem getting me tongue around it, is a Gortletra. Gortletra,
yeah.
How are they getting on, Darragh?
Spot on. Well, they were a little bit disappointed now that Tónóg unfortunately fell by the wayside, but the determination as ever is there, and they'll be up and running by the time Tónóg 2021 comes around, Martin.
But Darragh, look, at the last thing I would say is, for any outfit, let it be the top or beginners, and we'll start with Gortletra, they're beginners, and it's great to see them starting out. If you get the skills leaflets that we've sent out there. And if they go down through those skills, you know, there's about 30 or 40 of them. Test yourself today, practice for a week, practice for 2 weeks, test yourself again. And whenever this thing lifts, you come back a much better hurler. Just imagine a player at any age level that can't hand pass the ball 2 meters, and they get stuck into that, and they start passing 2 meters against the wall or to a partner if they have it. Then that's built to 3, to 4, to 5, to 10, to 20 meters, Darragh. And then on the move, so that when this thing lifts, they're coming back into the field, and the next match to play, they're able to hand pass the ball 20 meters accurately. That would be savage. Now take the things we're talking about there, you know, about the ground hurling. Well, I mean, there's no excuse now for players to come back not able to be perfect at raising the ball. You know, so I shouldn't have to say, don't raise it because you're not able to raise it, or because you're too slow at raising it, or because when you raise it, you're not able to hit it. All of those things should be sorted out now, because they have plenty of time to do it. Out in the back garden, out in the kitchen, raising fast as you can, striking. So when we come back to the field, man, they should have all these skills perfect, Darragh. So listen, thanks for having me on, and best of luck with the programme.
Thanks very much, Martin.